Alright everyone, thanks for sticking around to watch this little bonus clip on debugging your functions. Even if you have a solid understanding of how functions work, sometimes there's just little details that can cause us trouble, which is why I thought it would be helpful to share with you my top things that I check whenever I'm working with functions, and just to make sure my I's are dotted, my T's are crossed. So let's get to it. Alright, so here I've got this kind of like pitiful looking little graphic that I used to use when I was just starting out in school, and you know, I almost updated this for the video just to be like more professional, but actually, like looking back on it, I kind of got a kick out of, well, how cringy it is. But, you know, I wanted to show it to you in this form because, guys, when you're learning something new, there is no shame in making little reference sheets or graphics, like cheat sheets for yourself, even if they're, you know, a little rough. It doesn't have to be perfect, okay? You got to do what you got to do. So I wanted to show it to you as I used to use it. So with all that being said, this graphic represents all the questions that I ask myself whenever I'm having an issue with one of my functions. Now, as you can see, it breaks this down into kind of two main categories: the structure of the function and the calling of the function. And these two categories obviously include like all the syntax associated with doing those things. So to demonstrate how I use this list, I've got a little example program set up for us. Now, normally, guys, in the spirit of modular testing, after we make a correction, we would run and just check our work, right? But just for time's sake in this video, I'm going to tell you that we have 3 issues here in this program that we need to correct. Now, this program is relatively simple. So what it does, if we look at the code here, is we are going to use a while loop, and inside we're going to prompt the user to enter a number greater than 0. They're going to give us that value, and then we're going to take user num, which is their input, and send it down here to a Boolean function called validate data. Here, we're going to validate that the user's input is indeed greater than 0. If it is, we say, okay, thanks, and then the program exits. If not, we say, you know, sorry, that's not correct. We send back a true value to main here for our loop toggle, okay? And then that is what will cause it to run again because it's true, and it will re-prompt the user, you know, sorry, that's not correct. You need to give us a number greater than 0. And that will continue on until we get a proper value that returns false, exits our loop, and the program ends. All right, but as I said earlier, we're currently having some issues with this program. I'm going to go ahead and run it. We know it's not going to run, but this way we can at least see the error codes down here. Okay, so this is telling us here, validate data, the identifier is not found. So it's basically telling us that it is not finding our function, but, you know, we see it here, so let's go ahead and start going through our checklist. All right, to make this a little easier, I thought it'd be nice to kind of have these side by side here for us. So whenever I start with my debugging, I always start here with the structure, because really if there's a problem with the structure of the function, then there's really no point in debugging any calls because it could fail because there's a structure issue. So we're going to start here. First things first, do we have a prototype for my function? Well, yes, we do. Right here on line 4, we've declared our prototype here for a bool validate data. Okay, and the next thing is, do I have a definition for my function? Let's go ahead and collapse int here just to make it a little easier for now. And yes, we do. So here is my definition. So we've got a prototype and a definition. Check, check. Finally here, do the prototype and the definition match, which includes the data type, data types for parameters, reference variables, etc. So what we're checking here is to make sure that our prototype and our definition, that the way we've set those up match verbatim. And what I mean by verbatim is they have to be exactly the same in both places. So the data type for the function has to match in both the prototype and the definition, the name, the parameters, all of that stuff has to be exactly the same. Okay, so let's go ahead and start and check these. So here I've got Boolean in both of these. Okay, so that matches. These are both named validate data. Oh, but are you guys seeing what I'm seeing? This is validate data with a lowercase d, and this is validate data with a capital D. So this is causing an issue right here because this does need to be exactly the same. Right now our compiler is thinking of these as 2 separate functions because they, technically they do have different names. So that makes sense. Next, We're going to check our parameters, and looks like we've got another conflict here. In our prototype, we've listed that we're going to be passing an int, but down here in our definition, it says that we're passing a double. Now, as humans, we know that ints and doubles are like pretty close in value, but again, with our compiler, even though we fixed the name here, and these are both named validate data, it is probably still interpreting this as two independent functions because the parameters are not the same, which is what distinguishes them. So in order to get our program to recognize these as the same function, the parameter data type that we're passing here needs to be consistent in both of them. So now we got to figure out which do we want. Do we need it to be the int or do we need it to be the double? To do this, let's take a look at our call and figure out what we're passing down. So here's our validate data call of the function, and we're going to passing user num, which if we look up here is a double. Okay, so this is correct. So let's go ahead and update this here to be a double. Okay, great. Okay, so at this point, we have fixed two pretty, reasonable and easy to make mistakes, right? Before we move on to calling, I want to note here that I've got this little reference for the copy and paste trick. If you guys, once you get a lot of functions and you've been looking at this code for like hours and hours, it can all start to blur together. So if you're ever in doubt, something that sometimes I like to do is to take the header line of my definition and just copy it, and then take it right up here, paste it, and then just remove my naming there. And that way, for sure, they're going to match. Now, that's admittedly kind of a crutch. You don't want to get in the habit of doing that. You want to, develop a good habit so that these just match off the bat. But if you're really pulling your hair out, I have definitely needed to do that a couple times myself. So I wanted to share it with you. But okay, now let's go ahead and we've worked through the structure checking. Let's go ahead and move on to calling. So here for the calling, the first thing that I'm going to check is where am I calling my function, and is the syntax correct? Do I have brackets, the parentheses, parameters, semicolons, and here's our call, and that does look correct, okay? So perfect. Our next thing, am I passing parameters in the order that was described in the function prototype and definition? Well, right now, since we've only got one that we're passing, yes, that is good. But I do want to note that if you guys were passing multiple parameters here, for example, they need to be listed the same in both the prototype, the definition, and then in your call statement, you need to pass them in that same order. So just something to think about if you're ever working with multiple parameters, they need to be passed in the same order that you defined that they would be passed. Okay. So finally, the last thing that we have to check here for calling is, does my function have a return statement, and therefore, do I need to be initializing a variable with my function call? Well, since our function is a Boolean function, and it does have a return statement, that means that up here, we do need to be initializing a variable. Right now, we're just calling our function and passing the parameter, but that return doesn't have anywhere to live. We have nowhere to send it to once it comes back here to main. So that's definitely going to be a problem and is going to cause our user to kind of get stuck here in an infinite loop. Since we're using validate data to change our toggle here, we need to have incorrect data get initialized with whatever the return of our validate data function is. So let's update this here real quick. Okay, awesome. So that's everything on our list. Let's go ahead and run this baby just to check our work. And I do want to mention while this is running that, guys, this list does not account for like logical errors, if you're trying to call a function before you've initialized a variable, like that type of stuff, because it's very proprietary to the program that you're writing. So just if you're having issues and you've gone through this checklist, just think about that as well. The compiler works top to bottom, and it might be a logical thing that you're running into. So let's test the logic. Speaking of logic here in this, I'm going to put -1, and that should kick me back. Yep. Value is incorrect, so we need a number greater than 0. Let's say 5. Perfect. Thank you. And there we go. All right, everyone. Once again, thank you so much for sticking around and watching this and just taking that extra time to invest in yourself. I hope that checklist was helpful. Feel free to make yourself as many reference materials as you need to when you're learning this. You rock. You can do it. Stick with it. I'll see you next time.